Welcome to the Dear Doc Podcast, where we will discuss the business of running a dental practice with a panel of experts. Now, your host of the Dear Doc Podcast, Dr. Christopher Hoffpower.
Hey guys, good morning. This is Doc Huffpower, and you are joining me today in my recording studio here in Alvin, Texas. And today I have been joined by one of our experts for the Dear Doc podcast, and that is Dr. Lynne Gerlach. Lynne, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So I'm really glad you joined us. You guys don't know, she drove here from Austin this morning just so that she could get to this studio to just do our introductions and discuss who she is and what she brings to the table as part of our advisory group. So, Lynne, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, Chris, I'm a dentist, just like you. I graduated from dental school a little before you, 1987, but I practiced for 26 years, and about 10 years ago I was recruited to work with Phase 2 as a transition consultant, and I love change, so it's a perfect fit for me.
I love change too. My team doesn't always love change,
exactly.
But so tell us a little bit about what you do at Phase 2 and kind of the gambit of the different services that you guys offer, so they kind of know what you're qualified to speak on.
Sure. You know, we do a lot of things. We work with buyers a lot,
right?
As a buyer coach, but also I just like to get to know them. I love to meet young dentists that are excited about their career and about what they want to do, and I make every opportunity to meet with them and get to know them a little bit, understand what their needs are. That helps me be more prepared when a seller's ready to sell. I have great quality buyers,
absolutely,
and that I know. And I take the time to get to know what they want. That helps me with my sellers, because guess what? They have a list too.
Right.
And so that helps. And then we also do mergers, partnerships, valuations, those types of things.
Okay, so it looks like a lot of the letters that we receive on the business of dentistry are right up your alley.
Sure.
And you and I have been talking about this podcast and getting you to do something with talking about some of those letters for quite some time. Lynne, if you didn't know, is actually a member of TBOD, and she weighs in on topics sometimes to help folks out. So the next thing I guess we should talk about is we've covered who you are and why you do what you do and what you do. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of your personal philosophies. You and I have spoken a little bit about dual representation and solo representation whenever it comes to brokers, and what your opinions on what's best for the dentist is. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that it's important that you have your team. I don't think I can sit on the fence and feel strongly both ways. We work solo representation, whether it be the buyer or whether it be the seller. That's how we operate and always have.
Right.
I think that's best for whoever our client is on whichever side of the table we're sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
They get all of us, and we will facilitate and help get documents back and forth, that sort of thing. But as far as actually representing both sides, we do not do that.
And the funny thing to me is, and you and I have discussed this before, dental brokers aren't licensed. They have to be highly skilled,
right,
and they have to be highly knowledgeable, but they're not licensed. But there is something that's licensed that is very similar, and what is that?
Real estate.
And what
Sure.
are the rules in Texas on real estate?
Yeah, real estate does not do dual representation either.
Right.
They for a reason, and there are some brokers that have a real estate license, and so
right.
that's because they're dealing with selling the real estate of the practice as well.
Absolutely.
And we don't do that. But there's a reason why the state of Texas limits that.
And that is my feeling as well.
Yeah, and I think it's best for whoever our client is, whichever side of the table, that they get
Absolutely.
They get 100% of us.
And now, folks, so this, in full disclosure, there are some large companies that still use dual representation, and they do operate in Texas. It's just not something I think is appropriate, and that's actually one of the things that got me to think, hey, I need to bring Lynne on here. She agrees with that, and that's how they practice, which is fantastic. So I guess that the next thing we'd really want to talk about is probably we'll start talking about some of the Dear Doc letters you've read.
Sure.
I know we're not going to get into a specific one right now, but I kind of want people to get some real value out of this. I like to make sure that I save my members money whenever I can. So if looking at these letters, if you could just give some advice to people and say, hey, look, these are the numbers that are really important. And if you want to sell your practice or you want to buy a practice, these are the numbers you should look at. And then we'll talk about DIY in a couple of seconds.
Okay.
What numbers are you seeing missing, or what numbers are you seeing misconstrued, or what mistakes in thinking are these dentists, experiencing in these?
Most of the Dear Doc letters that I've seen tend to be buyers.
Right.
First off, so they're new doctors. Maybe they have some experience in business before, or maybe not. Likely not.
Right.
Yet they're really smart, so they know what they want. And they have quite the shopping list usually about their Goldilocks practice, about what they'd like. And I wish I could deliver all of that, but I really can't.
Are you telling me that you can't find a 7-op practice fully equipped in the last 3 years with a CBCT, full digital X-rays, 100% paperless, and you want it for under $150,000, and they have to be producing at least $800,000 a year?
Yeah, those aren't available. I'm sorry. I wish.
I had all my hopes riding on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have their hopes riding on the quality practice in the great neighborhood, and there's a lot of those out there. But I think knowing what you want is the first step. So I love to hear people's dreams, and I think dream it and you can have it. But if you haven't dreamt it, you're not going to ever know what you're going for. So I believe in big dreams. But the second thing is really trying to get people to understand that it's not just about patient count. It's not just about necessarily the number of ops, but it might be about the opportunity to expand.
Right.
That's an important piece.
Well, the first thing I thought whenever you said, I want a quality office in a nice neighborhood, I want the shitty office in a nice neighborhood.
Oh, you want the fixer-upper.
Absolutely. That's where the value is.
Very popular here in Texas, fixer-uppers, and certainly there's some opportunity there.
Absolutely.
Some of the challenges I see with young doctors is they're looking for such a value that they don't have a big enough engine. So they've got to buy a big enough engine. So what I mean by that is that if they have a lot of student debt, and then they're going to have debt for their practice, in order to try to manage their life, their family obligations, as well as their practice debt and their student debt, they've got to get a big enough engine to drive all of that home.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they're looking a little too small. As a matter of fact, I've had quite a few of those lately.
Do you think it's because they're afraid that they just aren't fast enough? Or do you think that, and this is honestly business-wise, and this pains me to hear you say that, because business-wise, I think a lot of people go into it and they're like, oh, if I have a small business, I can learn from the bottom and build my way up. But in reality, the problems of small practices are so much more detrimental, and they can destroy the business so fast compared to a large practice that has a little bit of cushion that it can take.
The fixed expenses kind of stay the same.
Yeah.
So when you grow the top line and you have a bigger revenue number, you have a little bit more wiggle room, I'll call
Absolutely.
it, to navigate. And I do think that sometimes they're looking too small. And I know it's scary, I think, for a new doctor to say, hey, I'm going to take on that, $1 million practice or whatever. I think that can be kind of intimidating, especially if they've never done it, depending on what their skill set is.
Right.
So I think, that's where you need to develop your skills, and be ready for that kind of practice. And if you're in an associateship or something, are you seeking the mentorship? Are you rolling up your sleeves and acting like an owner to learn those things so that you're ready when the opportunity arrives?
Thanks for listening to the Dear Doc podcast, your source for the business and legal questions associated with your dental practice. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dear Doc podcast on all major platforms.